Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. In this issue, I'll be covering quite a broad set of subjects. It's going to seem a little bit more like an advertising piece for the Network School Fellowship. I came across this from a post and an email that I received from Balaji's Srinivasan's Medium. And so I think his ideas are worth mentioning and actually featuring on an entire podcast. So what I'll attempt to do is to give you his pitch for what he's building, what he is trying to establish as a fellowship in Singapore, and then use some of the ideas that I've interacted with the last few years to see how it all fits together in the bigger picture. Once again, I'm your host, Nicholas Kianda, for the Intersection Magazine Podcast. Thank you for listening and thank you for subscribing. So Balaji Srinivasan is the writer of a book called Network States, and he's really working on an idea of defining what it means to have a state. It's you could think of it as a theoretic book or maybe a political book on examining what we currently have as ideas in technology and advancements in media and the whole landscape into what he sees as a new emerging trend that is going to alter how we think of governance, how we think of nations. And he calls his idea or his book the Network States. But the idea for this podcast is really to talk about what he's trying to build in Singapore. So for those of you who are founders or creators from any country, they're offering 100,000 USD in funding for those who are willing to relocate to their network school campus in Singapore for a year, where they will, of course, learn and build and hopefully also get some mentorship. So in a sense, they're looking first and foremost for AI first creators. I suppose they and everybody else is realizing that artificial intelligence is going to be at the heart of what we do. So they were trying to focus on AI builders as well as people who are generally into the idea of community building. There are a couple of ideas that they're trying to work with or that they're recognizing or that are building or that at the source or the power behind what they're trying to do and the ideas. The first thing they're thinking about is you have to realize that the internet is rising. Not only is the internet rising, that Asia itself is rising as well. The other thing that they're realizing or that is at the heart of what they're trying to do is the idea behind this concept of decentralization. Those of you who are subscribers into the crypto world, Web3, ideas such as DAOs, realize the importance of this concept of decentralization. But they're taking this idea of decentralization a little bit farther, thinking of Silicon Valley itself, which has been at the heart of how we build, how we think about technology and innovation ecosystems. So what they're trying to do is attract students or applicants from all over the world. They want students that are working on projects that are intensely devoted on those projects. They're interested in all sorts of people, high school grads, newly graduated PhDs or PhDs, open source developers, research scientists, early stage startups, or engineering professors, whoever. they're more interested in this AI first creator category because they believe, and these are some of their most important beliefs, that 20th century media is completely done. It's over. They believe that every niche that was formerly filled with Hollywood, newspapers, magazines, broadcast television, all those are up for grabs. They believe that the traditional production is now shifting to other avenues such as the internet. So what this network school fellowship is looking for, they're looking for filmmakers, artists, storytellers who want to make tasteful use of AI to, in a sense, just completely crush production costs and write new stories for the 21st century. So they think that at the heart of all this, the massive price cut that will be caused by AI, that this leverage is too important for them to miss. So, which is why they're trying to find people who are integrating artificial intelligence into their workflow. Now, in terms of what they're looking for their community builders, the idea that they're thinking about is, which I mentioned before in the concept of network states, is people who are thinking in terms of, who understand cryptocurrencies, people who understand the concept of startup societies, people who understand community building, pop-up cities, network states, digital tribes. So people who have an understanding, or people who are currently engaged and who appreciate ideas such as digital nomadism. These are the kinds of people that they're interested in. So those are some of what is fueling their work. They believe that this concept of network states will be a mega trend. So what about the people? What kind of people are going to be attracted to this kind of society or this network? A founder, a creative person. You have to be internet first, open to ideas such as decentralization, cryptocurrency, and encryption. In terms of political bent, they're looking for liberals or centrists, people who are politically pragmatic, not really those who are nationalists or socialist. And this is an interesting point because sometimes I have been part of several groups that have intense political discussions, and sometimes it can be frustrating to be part of these groups, but maybe some of these ideas are central now to investment and to communities that may have certain ideas at their heart, or that your political ideas sometimes can be a hindrance to access opportunities that may not necessarily match your political affiliations. Now, they're also looking for people who are devoted to the idea of technology, those who are in it for the long run. They're also interested in people who are willing to relocate to Singapore. So much as they're seeing a decline in Silicon Valley, they're also trying to build in a geographical area. And then they're also looking for talent that is not expected, or that doesn't come from the traditional places or spaces. And they explain this a little bit further, or rather he explains it a little bit further. Now, the other thing that they're trying to see is, people sometimes when they're trying to build or innovate, you often find that they're trying to balance living conditions, rent, internet, all sorts of other challenges. But what they're trying to do at this facility, at the Network School Fellowship, is to make sure that your funding, your coffee, your food, your gym, your office space, your laundry, your cleaning, all of that is taken care of so that you can focus on building. So it's a simple application process. There's a form you fill on a site. Then you participate in a Zoom meeting. Then if you're successful in the first two, you visit the campus for a one-to-one interview, and then if you're accepted, you are funded to be there for a year in Singapore. So they like to think of it as like the NBA draft or the startup draft, where they source talent from around the world and then collocate that talent. They're thinking of about maybe 100 founders in their first batch and then probably scale it up later on. So what's the ethos? What's informing this idea? So the first thing that they talk about is that the old path of finding global technology is done. You know, before you'd go to Stanford or Silicon Valley or San Francisco, California, and ultimately America, that path is no longer tenable. So they're trying to find or to forge a new path that's purely global in terms of its scope. Now, the author of this and the man behind the startup network or the Network School Fellowship has a few ideas that he thinks are at the heart of what they're trying to do. What he wants to do, first of all, is identify what the path to tech talent used to look like, why that path to tech talent is broken, and how that path to technology talent can be replaced. So he describes a smart kid from, say, Indiana. He takes his SATs, gets a great score, is accepted at engineering school, comes to Stanford for a graduate degree, ends up establishing a company in Silicon Valley, scales it up, it goes public. The global path is really for, say, a kid from India. He takes his exams, passes amazingly, goes to an engineering school in India that's excellent, comes to Stanford for his graduate degree, finds a tech company in Silicon Valley, sets it up, scales it, goes public, becomes a U.S. citizen. This example that he gives is actually two people that founded Sun Microsystems. They came from different places, but thanks to the idea behind global meritocracy and international capitalism, they built something together that benefits the world. But the author of this piece and the author or the man who is behind the Network School Fellowship says that old path is broken. So what is he saying? This idea behind international capitalism is broken. The idea behind global meritocracy is also broken. Now, he also says that this idea for what happened for Sun Microsystems to take place, he says that it's not going to be possible in the U.S. as we know it today. Now, he says, for example, that the guy from Indiana is probably going to be challenged because of new incentives that are maybe looking for people that are not necessarily Caucasians to be integrated into the education system. So this is a bit of a criticism against some policies of the Biden administration. The second thing that he talks about is the idea that the co-founder of Sun Microsystems, who incidentally was an Asian, is probably going to have a little bit of a challenge coming to the U.S. because of immigration issues. Now, he goes on to break down different aspects of the ecosystem as it stands: Stanford, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and California itself, and then ultimately America. He says that now there exists anti-merit admissions. The tuition fees are rather high. Student visa denials are high. Grade inflation is high. Ideological zealotry is high, is on the rise. Artificial intelligence fakery. Lack of reproducibility at Stanford, as well as budget cuts. There's also the suggestion that a lot of Ivy League schools are in decline. Then he goes on to talk about Silicon Valley. He says that there are regulatory issues. Compliance itself will cost you over 250,000 USD. Then there's a high cost of living, regulation. Then he says there's also the challenge of ideological conformity, that new ideas, fresh, crazy ideas are less acceptable now than they used to be before. So you find that it's more possible to be funded than it is to be exceptional, in a sense that if you conform to what traditionalists would like to fund, then you'll get the funding, but you will have to sell your soul and not be as exceptional as you would be if you were allowed to build crazy ideas. Of San Francisco, we've seen the news. Unfortunately, the rise in use of drugs such as fentanyl, crime, anti-tech laws, anti-tech sentiment, all sorts of attacks on founders. Now, the California issue is debatable because they spoke of it as a bankrupt state. But at the publishing of this piece, I also received some news about how California, for example, was now the fourth largest economy after, I believe, the U.S., China, I believe Germany, if not India, but it's actually the fourth largest economy with its GDP numbers, and I think they had about 1.3 trillion backing why they were the fourth largest economy. So the bankrupt issue is debatable. Now, on the America issue, because we were talking about Silicon Valley, Stanford, San Francisco, California, and America, there's a general hostility against immigration. Maybe that's an interesting idea that has emerged now with, if you read geopolitics, with Harvard, for example, being challenged about its anti-Jewish sentiments and ideologies. Foreign investment, student visas, exports, imports, free trade, as well as, of course, now the issue of tariffs. So in short, what the author sees is a surging anti-capitalism and anti-internationalism. Means that the whole Silicon Valley idea is going to be harder to sell. So the path, he believes, is closing. For this, as a solution to this challenge, the author says that the internet is a solution. And if you understand the concept of the internet, it's essentially a decentralized system. So what he says now is the advantage that Silicon Valley used to have is no longer an issue. That as long as you have the internet, communities can be set up anywhere. Perhaps maybe in terms of a bit of a criticism around the idea of this being geographically centered, you could argue that with the internet and the ability to access a laptop and talent, maybe the next stage or the next level of this concept of the network state would be, what about if we could create virtual communities where these same ideas could be applied, these same ideas would be in existence. For example, if I can find maybe 50 founders from 4 major continents, give them access to an Airbnb. That Airbnb would have internet, it would have laundry facilities, it would, I would make sure that they have their meals taken care of. And then through an internet channel, they'd be required to have a mandatory communications or activities online with mentors who would help them build whatever they're building. So instead of being in a physical place for a year, they would be required, for example, to come in maybe 4 times in a year to a location, or maybe just once in a year to one location. Let's say 4 times in a year to a certain location for actual physical meetings where they talk to mentors, go through their ideas, have actual face-to-face meetings. So what if we could have that, and as opposed to the idea of actually physically being in a certain place. Anyway, let's go back to the idea that the fellowship is pursuing, the Network School Fellowship. So they talk about how the internet is the new path for technology talent. So the idea for them is to build a community where these things can happen. So what they're trying to do as the Network School Fellowship is provide a place where many of the ideas that made Silicon Valley practical and possible can happen elsewhere. Now, why Singapore? First of all, he says that thousands of millionaires have moved to Singapore. Second, he says that 50% of the Earth's population lives within a short plane flight. So that's, you're talking India, you're talking China, you're talking Southeast Asia. Then 50% of the world's GDP is now within Asia. For those that understand the importance of cryptocurrency, it's already decentralized in Asia. Artificial intelligence in the process of also decentralizing. Then visas are pretty easy for those who want to relocate into the region. It's a goal for them to be actually bringing in about 20,000 skilled workers. So what he says is that the capital exists, visas exist, the willingness to build already exists. The facilities as well are readily available. So network states can be found at ns.com. So visit ns.com and apply. Now, interest areas of software, hardware, crypto, artificial intelligence, robotics, genomics, any other technology-centered vertical. So, while it's important to know about companies that exist in the U.S. and in Silicon Valley, it's also important to have a global ability to think about what it means to be the best. The other idea that they're trying to work on is AI that actually has a sense of excellence in it. The man with 6 fingers, or the AI person that's been generated with 6 fingers, they call that AI slop. The other thing that they're looking about is the concept of workflow and the use of AI as a creator. Then, in terms of the areas where they were looking, in terms of the film and the creators and the creativity, there's also an idea that artificial intelligence has the ability to bridge the gap and to create content suitable for larger audiences than traditional production companies. They recognize as well the importance of artificial intelligence in editing. They're also interested in the idea of creative people coming from all over the continent. Then they are taking advantage of the ideology that created Singapore to where it is. So those of you who are familiar with Lee Kuan Yew and his abilities and how he thought and how he thinks, Then, of course, as well as the advantage that you will have if you apply is get access to world-class mentors, people who have built or that have made important contributions in the decentralization space and the network state space. They also mention that for those of you who are unable to cover your bill or that will have financial challenges are also encouraged to make this very clear when you apply. Now, the dynamics of what this interaction will be like are going to be based on what stage your startup is in. The pool of people that are going to be attracted to this community is going to be rather vast. People who are expected to come to this network school are going to be people from probably like 90 countries. There could be 18, there could be 48. Changes, thinking about or introducing yourself based on the fact that you're incorporated in Delaware or that you have a certain check or certain valuation or in a certain round. All that is, they believe all that is old school. That people that are building for Web3 are thinking in terms of completely different concepts, such as decentralized DAOs, for example. Now, the other issue that they raise is the importance of finances. How much is it going to cost you to live in Silicon Valley versus how much is it going to cost you to live in Singapore? The other idea, of course, that they push for is this concept or this idea behind the 100,000 USD check for those who successfully apply for the program. So they're looking at helping those who are underappreciated to rise, at least have some kind of runway as they build, which is important. Sometimes when you're focusing so much on building, in the early stages, you don't have enough, you don't make enough to keep you going for a while, especially in the dark valleys of the startup stage. Now, they've mentioned a lot on the idea behind traditional schools such as the Ivy Leagues. They mentioned a lot about visa restrictions. They mentioned a lot about crime. But they like to think of what's happening now as an exit, the ultimate exit from Silicon Valley. With the numbers that emerged from California in terms of the GDP and the fact that it was referred to as the fourth largest economy, one wonders what's going to happen with the tariff issues with this current administration. One also wonders what's going to happen with visa restrictions for those who are in Ivy League schools and the changes that are taking place. If the success of California is sustainable without a successful Silicon Valley. So if the author, Balaji, refers to this as he refers to this as the ultimate Silicon Valley exit. So I think this is something we need to watch. So in summary, we've talked about this concept of network states. We've talked about the author, Balaji Srinivasan. We've talked about his book on network states and the ideas behind the emergence of a new kind of state. So it's, in a sense, a political book. It's an ideological book. It's also a book that attempts to recognize existing trends that are fueled by technology, by the internet, by artificial intelligence, trends that are going to affect how we work, trends that are going to affect traditional media, trends that are affecting what we think of as nations. He then goes on to talk about what they're proposing in the Network School Fellowship, its geographical location in Singapore, why Asia and Singapore in particular is a place that you should be thinking about, why this location, why this place should be located in that area. He breaks down the ecosystem from the universities of Stanford to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, California itself, and then the U.S. It tackles issues such as Ivy Leagues and their traditional recruitment processes. Talks about visas for immigrants. He talks about legislation around startups, traditional ways of thinking in terms of domiciling. He talks about the economies. He talks about as well as a decline in Silicon Valley area. Then he makes a case for those who are thinking about relocating to or participating in this Network School Fellowship. So in my view, he presents a compelling case that merits a lot of conversation around this amazing coming shift. So I hope that you can at least look him up, apply if you fall into the area of or categories that we mentioned. That is, if you're building an AI first startup or tool or project, as well as if you're community centered. They also mentioned a few other ideas, but that was at the heart of this week's podcast. Thanks again for listening and subscribing. I've been your host, Nicholas Kianda. I'm grateful for the ability to engage with you.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.